The words of father and husband, John Hunt. My name is John Hunt, and I am blessed to be Carol's husband, and Hannah, Louise, and Amy's dad. When I challenge myself about how you were able to deceive us all, I simply say that you are a psychopath who, for the duration of your time together with Louise, was able to disguise yourself as an ordinary human being. You reserved your best make-believe version of yourself for the times you were in our house. You managed to maintain that veneer of decency throughout the first year of your time with Louise, but you couldn't maintain it in the early part of 2024. The screams of hell, Kyle, I can hear them faintly now. The red carpet will come out for you at that point. When the person you could have been meets the person that you are, you will realize your miserable fate will last for eternity. By the way, this is Dark Case, and you can call me Jack. I bring you rare and unseen true crime cases, as well as other things that you may later regret knowing, with multiple uploads every single week. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, make sure you hit subscribe now and turn all notifications on. Even if you think all notifications are turned on, make sure you give it a quick check, because I recently checked and only 13% of you have this option turned on. Help me. And now for today's silly little question. Would you have the thumb of your dominant hand amputated in return for $1 million? Let me know down in the comments. All of your support over on Patreon, as well as right here via channel memberships on YouTube, are so appreciated, and I really can't thank you all enough. However, thank you. But now, on with the video. Louise Hunt, 25, was a dog groomer running her own business out of her family's garden pod. She was described as independent, warm, and driven. Kyle Clifford, then 24, was an ex-soldier who had recently left the military after a short stint. He presented himself as disciplined, reserved, as well as emotionally open, if only to Louise. At first, the relationship seemed stable, but within months, red flags had started to flicker. Friends noticed that he could be controlling. Louise even confided in one of them that Kyle had a nasty temper. She told another that being with him was sucking the life out of me. He was possessive yet also distant. He was jealous yet flirtatious with others. Behind Louise's back, Kyle signed up for dating apps like Hinge and Bumble. He would lie to her about other women. He would hide conversations with them, and when confronted about this, he would just deflect or lash out. Louise began to distance herself. She asked him for space, but Kyle didn't take this well. By June of 2024, after 18 draining months, Louise decided to officially end the relationship. Her message was kind but final. It read, "I'm sorry, Kyle, but I feel I can't continue with what we have. I feel like it has been broken, and I can't ignore how I've been feeling. Take care of yourself always, please." That was on June the 26th, and within just hours, Kyle was online and deep down a rabbit hole. He was trying to buy something that could destroy an entire family and derail the community that surrounded them. Louise's family had never fully trusted Kyle. Her sister Hannah described him as arrogant and rude. Their mother Carol saw immaturity behind his polite facade. And though none of them ever imagined exactly what he was capable of, they knew instinctively that something wasn't right. Still, because of who they were kind to him. He'd even spent Christmas with them. Carol welcomed him in like a son-in-law. But behind the scenes, Louise was making notes in her phone about Kyle's behavior. She wrote that he was racist, that he'd made hostile comments about transgender people, and that he'd used language that belittled and demeaned her. These weren't just petty relationship complaints, they were signs of emotional control and ideological hatred. But Louise, like many people in toxic relationships, didn't feel immediately unsafe herself. Instead, she just felt drained by it all. After the breakup, her family was generally relieved. Her sister Amy later said he simply failed to be the person that she needed. But Louise still offered him grace. She agreed to let him return some of her things on the 9th of July. She agreed to see him. She believed that he had accepted the ending like an adult. Mother Carol believed that too. She opened the front door for him that afternoon. She greeted him with compassion, much in the same way that she always had. This breakup may have triggered something within Kyle, but it seems clear that these dark ideologies were already within him, insidious thoughts that were just waiting to be ignited into a raging fire. However, what he would do was not just a spontaneous act of rage. It was methodical, cold, and calculated. On the 30th of June, just days after Louise told him that it was over, Kyle's online research had led him into the world of crossbows. He settled on a model costing £350, complete with 6 bolts and a cocking device. But he didn't just leave it at that. He had a lot more to his plan, and that would mean that he needed to purchase some accessories as well. He bought duct tape, rope, a specialist butchering knife, 2 petrol cans, and perhaps most chillingly, an air pistol. However, that would not arrive in time for him to include it in his plans. Kyle also researched how alcohol could be used as an accelerant in a fire. During this time, he also wrote a note in his phone addressed to myself, reading, "Nothing I can think of can make me happy. I know I could have gone to therapy, found faith and become a better person, but I just simply don't want to." Kyle also searched horse racing today. Investigators believe that he wanted to confirm whether John Hunt, Louise's father, and a BBC racing commentator would be at work on that afternoon. John Hunt is a familiar voice to millions as a veteran BBC horse racing commentator. He's highly respected and dedicated to his field, but he's even more devoted to his role at home. He and his wife Carol had built a warm, tight-knit family in Bushey, Hertfordshire, raising their 3 daughters, Hannah, Louise, and Amy. Carol, 61, was the quiet backbone of the household. She was compassionate, perceptive, and deeply protective of her children. Hannah, 28, was a beautician, known for her strength and fierce loyalty, especially to her younger sister, Louise. At 25, Louise was a bright and independent dog groomer. Amy, the eldest daughter, lived away from the family home, but she remained closely bonded with her parents and sisters. And altogether, the Hunts were the kind of family who showed up for one another at birthdays, on holidays, or just a regular Tuesday night. They were united by their love, humour, and the simple joy of just being together. I can imagine that once your family reach a certain level of comfort, it could feel like you're protected from some bad things ever happening. And it's that contrast between the family's daily life and the events of this video that really do make the whole thing seem even more horrifying. By the 9th of July, the plan was fully in motion. Kyle placed the crossbow beneath a blanket in his car. He dressed casually. He carried himself with a quiet determination, and he arrived at the Hunt family's quiet cul-de-sac in Bushey at 2:32 p.m. Louise was working in a pod in the garden, dog grooming, and she was unaware that Kyle was already inside the house, waiting. Carol had answered the door to Kyle at just after 2:30 p.m. She smiled and welcomed him in. But just seconds after that door closed, a faint scream was captured on the family's home security system. Kyle had jabbed at her repeatedly, in the hands, the knees, the back, and the chest. She never really stood a chance. And then silence fell over the home once more, and he waited. At 3:07 p.m, he returned to his car and retrieved the crossbow. He then re-entered the home, and remained there, silent and hidden. An hour later, Louise left the pod in the garden and entered the home through the patio doors. Inside, Kyle ambushed her. He taped her ankles and wrists. He restrained her and disgustingly violated her. This ordeal lasted nearly 3 hours. And as if that wasn't calculated enough, he even used Louise's phone to message Father John. "What time are you home?" he typed. John Hunt replied, "Late, I'm afraid. Everything okay, sweetness?" At 6:50 p.m, Hannah returned from work. She was still in her beautician's uniform as she walked into the family home. She called out as she always would, There was a pause, and then she sent a text message to her boyfriend, Alex Klein. It read, "Call police immediately. To mine, now. Kyle here. Police, now. He's tying us up." Just 2 minutes later, Hannah was struck by one of the bolts from behind, and even though she was now mortally wounded, she somehow managed to dial 999 and tell the operator exactly who had done this. Police arrived just minutes later. By this time, Carol and Louise were already gone, and Hannah's time on this earth came to an end shortly after. Police found 3 vodka bottles on a sideboard in the home, likely a failed or abandoned attempt to destroy evidence. Kyle Clifford was already gone. He disappeared out into the world once more. It's hard to overstate what Hannah Hunt actually accomplished in her final moments. She came home expecting a normal evening. Instead, though, she walked into a nightmare. Just seconds after stepping inside, she recognized the danger and she acted. Her voice, recorded on a home security device, was clear. "Kyle, I swear to God." Then the rapid clicks of her phone, the short, urgent, precise text message sent to Alex. And it was that message, along with the 999 call, that would save lives. Because of Hannah, police were dispatched with clarity of the situation. They knew who they were looking for. They knew that he was armed with a crossbow, and they knew that he probably had every intention of doing this again. Detectives later said that Hannah's actions prevented a 4th victim, her father, John, and John agrees. In court, through tears, he said, "I firmly believe that had she not shown such amazing physical and mental strength, I would have been the 4th victim that day."
Well, about 7 o'clock last night, the whole place went crackers. There was loads of police cars turned up. There was police out here in black outfits with and all the rest of it, all in the street here. And literally there was just police cars all down here, all over there. And there was ambulance, there was people in pink stuff, they all went down, and there was everything going on. It was amazing. And then with noise upstairs, I think the helicopters and everything just started. It just happened all of a sudden. It just went like it was an explosion. Everything happened. And that's all I can say. And they locked off the street and they stopped everybody getting through. And as far as I know, it's always a very quiet area here. Nothing ever goes on here. It's very unusual. It's very, very peaceful and very quiet.
The family's neighbours left stunned that something so terrible could have happened just yards away.
It's horrific. I have to go to work. we have to do our day-to-day job. But it does affect you, and it's at the back of your mind. It's right on your doorstep.
She's told to go inside there because there might be a man on the loose there with a crossbow. So we all went upstairs and kept on popping our head like most of the neighbours there through the windows kind of thing there, so a bit of window watching.
I mean, what was that like on a normal evening, being told there's a man with a crossbow nearby?
It's unnerving.
After fleeing the Hunts' home, Kyle Clifford made it nearly 20 miles north to Lavender Hill Cemetery in Enfield. There, sometime after 10 p.m, he aimed that same crossbow at himself, and he fired. This would not have the intended result, and he would live on. However, he was now paralysed from the chest down.
This evening there was major police activity at a cemetery in the Enfield area. Armed police and an emergency helicopter involved. The scale of it all, testament to the fact that finding the alleged triple killer had become a national police priority.
For the next 10 weeks, Kyle remained in hospital under round-the-clock police guard. Only then was he deemed fit for interview. When detectives finally sat down with him, they got nothing. He stuck with the incredibly annoying no comment in interview. There would be no explanation and no apology. However, privately, early on in his treatment, he had muttered, "What I've done is atrocious." But in formal interviews, he maintained his silence. When questioned about the note on his phone that was addressed to myself, Kyle appeared to choke up, but he still refused to elaborate. The note read in part, "Please don't think of this as me throwing my life away. I know you'll all have so many questions and wish that you could have done something different to prevent this. However, none of you have failed.
The next note is addressed to myself. I don't want to live my life without her. I don't want to experience new things. Nothing I can think of can make me happy. I know I could have gone to therapy, found faith, and become a new, better person, but I just simply don't want to. I'm so sorry I didn't wait to move on and find my future wife, have the children I always wanted. What do you mean by that?
No comment.
Explain to me why you decided to deprive Hannah and Louise of that privilege.
No comment.
What gave you the right to do that?
No comment.
What gave you the right to deprive Carol of seeing her future grandchildren?
No comment.
It's a very self-centred note and doesn't take into account anybody else. Do you agree with that?
No comment.
There's no apology to the Hunt family, is there?
No comment.
The only apology is to yourself. It wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't a loss of control. You didn't go to the address and all of a sudden form this intent to kill Carol, kill Louise, kill Hannah. You'd gone there with that sole intention in mind.
Detectives pressed him. Had he already planned the murders when he wrote this note? He just whispered once more, no comment.
Do you accept, Kyle, that based on the evidence, that this is a premeditated murder of 3 people?
No comment.
Do you accept that you have meticulously planned this murder from the moment that you split up Louise?
No comment.
Kyle Clifford never testified in court. He refused to appear for the violations against Louise, and he declined to attend his own sentencing. In his absence, the Hunt family faced his actions for him. John and Amy stood before the judge and the public to say what needed to be said. Amy, through tears, told the courtroom, "What you did to my baby sister is nothing short of demonic. You earned your place in hell."
Just the most loveliest human being. She was just so supportive and, yeah, just an amazing person.
Mia Grono-Marty was best friends with Louise Hunt. They were about to go on holiday together. Instead, she's now grieving.
What made her so special?
She would just never say a bad word about anyone, and she was just so understanding of just any kind of situation, just such a nice person. I just don't think I've ever met just such a nice person, ever. And I just, obviously just not good.
You first killed Carol, the judge began, who even on that day showed you nothing but kindness. In the moments before you attacked her, he then turned to Louise. You violated and killed her, she said. She had been as gentle as she could in ending her relationship with you after your arrogance and anger proved too much for her to stand. And then, the judge continued, you murdered Hannah, who had done nothing to harm you other than protect her sister. The courtroom remained silent as the judge described Kyle as a man soaked in self-pity and consumed by violent misogyny. A man who held women in utter contempt, he said. A man who believed his fragile ego was worth more than their lives. The judge called Louise, Hannah and Carol examples of gentle heroism, women who had lived with kindness and courage, and whose bravery, particularly in their final moments, may well have saved others. But of course, Kyle Clifford wasn't there to hear any of this. He refused to attend the sentencing, just as he'd refused to face the trial or give evidence. But it didn't truly matter. Those words were for the family, for John and Amy, who stood arm in arm as the sentence was passed, for the police and detectives who worked tirelessly to bring the case to trial, and for the memory of 3 women, Carol, Louise and Hannah, whose lives were ended by a man unworthy of the humanity that they had shown him.
There may be cases where a guilty plea should lead the court to draw back from imposing a whole life order. I have considered and rejected that course as the factors in favour of such an order are so compelling that they far outweigh all those pieces of mitigation. I am left in no doubt that this is the sentence I must impose. The sentences I pass are, therefore, for possession of an offensive weapon, the crossbow, 1 year's imprisonment, concurrent. For the possession of an offensive weapon, the knife, 1 year's imprisonment, concurrent. For the murder of Carol Hunt, life imprisonment with a whole life order, the early release provisions are not to apply. For the false imprisonment of Louise Hunt, 8 years imprisonment concurrent. For the rape of Louise Hunt, 20 years imprisonment concurrent. For the murder of Louise Hunt, life imprisonment with a whole life order. The early release provisions are not to apply. For the murder of Hannah Hunt, life imprisonment with a whole life order. The early release provisions are not to apply.
On the day of the sentencing, Mr. Justice Benathan broke from tradition. He opened not with a summary of the case, but with the punishment. To spare the family any further suspense, he delivered 3 whole life orders. 3 lives stolen, 3 lives that Kyle Clifford would pay for until his last breath. He will never see freedom, ever again. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.